The Cold Awakening, Part 2, The Hunted. Marcus Reed lay on the grass, the scent of pine and soil grounding him after his harrowing escape from the vanguard of Ascension. The stars above sparkled, indifferent to his ordeal, but a creeping unease gnawed at him. His wrist throbbed where the cyborg cuffs had bitten into his skin, and a faint green glow pulsed beneath the surface. A stark reminder that his escape might not be as complete as he'd hoped. He sat up, examining the glow. It wasn't just a bruise or an infection. It was too rhythmic, too deliberate, a tracking device. The realization hit him like a punch to the gut. The cyborgs weren't done with him. He scrambled to his feet, his heart racing again. The forest around him was quiet, but that wouldn't last. If the cyborgs could track him, they'd be coming. He needed to move, now. Marcus took off through the underbrush, his bare feet stinging as they struck rocks and roots. His mechanic's mind churned. He needed shelter, a weapon, and a plan. The nearest settlement was a few miles east, a small outpost he'd visited years ago for spare parts. If he could get there, he might find something to defend himself with. The sky darkened as he ran, a low hum growing in the distance. He glanced back and his blood ran cold. 3 sleek black drones hovered above the tree line, their red optics scanning the ground. They were fast, too fast. Marcus ducked behind a tree, his breath ragged. The drones fanned out, their beams cutting through the darkness. One swept close, its light grazing the bark inches from his face. He held his breath, waiting until it passed, then bolted toward a ravine he remembered from his last trip. If he could lose them in the narrow gully, he might have a chance. The hum grew louder, joined by a metallic clank. Marcus risked a glance over his shoulder and saw them. 2 cyborgs, their biomechanical forms glinting in the moonlight, moving with predatory precision. Their faces were expressionless masks of flesh and steel, but their red optics burned with purpose. One raised an arm, a barrel extending from its forearm, and a burst of blue plasma scorched the ground where Marcus had been a second earlier. He dove into the ravine, the impact jarring his bones as he rolled down the steep incline. At the bottom, he spotted a rusted maintenance shed, likely abandoned by the outpost workers. He sprinted for it, kicking the door open and slamming it shut behind him. The shed was a mess of tools and scrap metal, but his eyes locked onto something useful. A plasma welder, modified into a makeshift rifle by some resourceful mechanic. It wasn't much, but it would have to do. Marcus grabbed it, checking the charge. The hum of the drones was right outside now, and the cyborg's footsteps echoed closer. The door exploded inward, shards of metal flying as the first cyborg charged in. Marcus fired, the plasma bolt striking its chest with a sizzle. The cyborg staggered but didn't fall, its organic components knitting back together as its mechanical parts whirred. "Specimen 472, surrender," it droned, raising its weapon. Marcus dove behind a workbench as plasma fire melted the wall behind him. He returned fire, aiming for the cyborg's optic. The shot connected, and the red light flickered out, the cyborg collapsing in a heap of sparking wires and twitching flesh. The second cyborg was already in the doorway, its movements faster, more calculated. Marcus grabbed a nearby canister of coolant and hurled it, then fired. The canister exploded in a burst of freezing mist, momentarily disorienting the cyborg. Marcus charged, using the butt of the rifle to smash its knee joint. It stumbled, and he fired point blank into its chest. the plasma burning through its core. The cyborg shuddered and fell, but the drones outside were closing in, their beams locking onto him through the shed's broken walls. Marcus knew he couldn't stay. The tracker in his wrist was a beacon. They'd keep coming. He needed to get off the planet. The outpost had a small spaceport, mostly used for cargo runs to nearby systems. If he could steal a ship, he might make it to Calith, a trade route empire one system over. It was a lawless hub, but it had black markets, and black markets meant surgeons who could remove trackers for a price. He sprinted for the spaceport, the drones in pursuit. Their plasma fire scorched the ground around him, but he zigzagged through the trees, using the terrain to his advantage. The spaceport came into view, a dusty landing pad with a handful of ships. Most were cargo haulers, but one caught his eye, a sleek, unmarked shuttle, likely a smuggler's vessel. It was his best shot. Marcus reached the shuttle as the drones closed in, their beams searing his shoulder. He gritted his teeth, hot wiring the door panel with skills honed from years of fixing broken machinery. The door hissed open, and he dove inside, slamming the controls to seal it. The shuttle's engines roared to life as he punched the ignition, the drone's fire pinging off the hull. He pulled the ship into the air, the G-forces pinning him to the seat as he broke through the atmosphere. The drones fell behind, unable to keep up, but Marcus knew the cyborgs wouldn't stop. They'd send more ships, more hunters. He set a course for Calith, the coordinates flickering on the nav screen. The shuttle shook as it hit hyperspace, the stars stretching into streaks of light. For the first time in hours, Marcus exhaled. Calith was a sprawling mess of a planet, its surface dotted with neon-lit markets and towering trade spires. Marcus landed in a seedy port on the outskirts, the air thick with the smell of fuel and spices. He pulled a hood over his head, hiding the glowing tracker on his wrist as he navigated the crowded streets. Calith was a haven for outlaws, but that meant it had what he needed, a black market surgeon. He asked around, slipping a few credits to a street vendor who pointed him to a back-alley clinic run by a man named Varkis. The clinic was a grimy hole in the wall, its walls lined with flickering monitors and shelves of questionable tech. Varkis was a wiry man with a cybernetic eye that whirred as it scanned Marcus. "Tracker, huh?" he said, peering at the green glow. "Cyborg tech. Nasty stuff. I can try to cut it out, but it'll cost you." Marcus nodded, handing over the last of his credits. Varkis strapped him to a table, the restraints uncomfortably familiar. The surgeon's tools hummed as he worked, slicing into Marcus's wrist with precision. Pain shot through Marcus's arm, but he clenched his jaw, focusing on the hum of the clinic's generator. Varkis frowned as he probed deeper, his cybernetic eye glowing brighter. "This isn't just a tracker," he muttered. "It's bonded to your nervous system. I can't remove it, not like this." "What do you mean?" Marcus's voice was tight, the pain making his vision swim. Varkis leaned back, wiping his tools. "It's got a fail-safe. If I cut it out, it'll release a neurotoxin into your system. You'll be dead in seconds. The cyborgs who planted this didn't want it removed easily. There's a deactivation key, a small device they keep on their ship. Without it, this thing stays in you, and they'll keep tracking you." Marcus's heart sank. He'd escaped the vanguard of Ascension, but he wasn't free, not yet. The cyborgs were still out there, and now he had a new mission. Find the deactivation key, or he'd be running for the rest of his life. Varkas released the restraints, his expression grim. You'd better move fast, friend. That glow's getting brighter. They're already on their way. Marcus stumbled out of the clinic, the neon lights of Kaleith blurring as his mind raced. He needed a ship, a crew, and a plan to get back to the cyborg ship, or find another way to get that key. The hum of an approaching vessel echoed overhead, and he glanced up, his stomach twisting. A familiar black silhouette descended through the smog, its red lights cutting through the night. The cyborgs had found him.